Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexis and today I'm going to be sharing some of my recommendations for the month of April, which is considered Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. Back in January, I did do a video talking about the various monthly topics I'm hoping to tackle in order to diversify my reading, as well as get that guaranteed happily ever after that we all want in romance. So with that being said, feel free to check that out in the cards above. And in addition to that, if you are curious what I'm hoping to get to in April, I did also do a video talking about my April TBR that will also be linked above. But with that being said, let's get into my recommendations for this topic. The first recommendation I have is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This is book 1 in the Hoops series, which was recently picked up by Bloom Publishing. So congrats to the author. I can't wait to get those editions as well, which have yet to be revealed for the cover. But essentially, this story follows August and Iris. August decides to calm his nerves the night before a championship game. And at said bar, he ends up finding a very passionate woman yelling at the TV for the sports game that is playing. And intrigued, August decides to go to her. They hit it off a little bit, but before the night is out, Iris does mention that she, in fact, is already in a relationship, which is quite serious and nothing can go further. August, however, does still feel chemistry, but he has an idea that, maybe they'll meet again. Little does he know, the next day, after said championship game, he does see her afterwards, but turns out she is the girlfriend of his rival, and his rival is not a good guy. That is the reason why I recommended this story, because the awareness and prevention aspect is primarily on Iris's side of the story. She is already in a committed relationship. Her then boyfriend didn't show many obvious signs to her in the beginning that made her want to take a step back. It wasn't until it was almost too late did she finally realize she had to save herself and those she loved moving forward. And being able to find herself again, making herself feel whole again before she can commit herself into a relationship with August. That's why I think this book is worth having on this list, because it doesn't just have the hero swooping in and saving the heroine. The heroine is saving herself, and it's refreshing to see in a romance book, or at least I'm hoping it becomes something we see more often in books, because we shouldn't have to see characters always being dependent on each other. Sometimes it is nice and refreshing to see someone being able to save themselves, because you can feel empowered, you notice the character is empowered, and it just makes the happily ever after that much more satisfying, getting your own type of justice, getting your own hopeful, happy reunion. And yeah, so that's the reason why I picked this book. If you are interested in an emotional read, a satisfying read, but a captivating read, definitely check this one out. In that same vein, I have Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. This is book 3 in the Hoop series. This follows Keenan and Lotus. This is also an age gap romance. Keenan is the basketball player in this book. We do get to see their first meeting in Long Shot, but it is not necessary to read the other books in the series, although I will say it's not a nice build up throughout. In this story, Keenan is a single dad, he's divorced, and he is just starting to put himself out there because he is drawn to Lotus. Lotus has an awareness that we got to see most in Long Shot prior to Hookshot, and we do have an idea of what had happened to Lotus when she was younger, but it is more dived into in this story. Again, it is on Lotus's side that she experienced an incident when she was younger, and since then she's kind of been casual in terms of her relationships. That is until Keenan, and she is also drawn to him. There's also somewhat of a mystical aspect in here, but very little toward the end. The belief, the compassion they have for each other. It's not as heavy as Long Shot, but it's still an endearing story, and we do get to see more of the family dynamics, especially on Keenan's side, as a man who is well into his basketball career and discovering what he wants to do afterwards. So, yes, recommend this. I recommend the entire series. Definitely worth the read. Now, for historical romance, here I have The Highlander by Kerrigan Byrne. This is book 3 in the Victorian Rebels series. Each book follows one of the heroes who has an unfortunate dark past, but they tend to cross paths. Whereas in this story, Liam is the hero and he is the Marquess of Ravencroft, whereas Philomena, who goes by Mina, is essentially broken out of an asylum by some of the Victorian rebels. And for her safety, she is given a false identity or hidden identity in order to become the governess of Liam's children. So this is an age gap romance. Philomena is already well into her 20s, though, and Liam, I believe, early 40s. But it is still a compelling story, a 12-year age gap, I believe, and his children are, I believe, in puberty or already past puberty. So there is that aspect in here. The detail regarding the abuse from her husband is not that graphic to me compared to some of her other stories. However, it's still relatively dark for historical romance, and this is my favorite in the series thus far. Liam is very understanding. He is able to recognize signs of abuse the way Mina reacts to him, whether it be through movement or just her kindness and gentleness. She is also a plus size heroine, so he always appreciated her tall and curviness. So, because it is a historical aspect, it's still having him be the protector and her the nurturer, but I loved it here, so it's okay. Another historical I have by Kerrigan Byrne is How to Love a Duke in 10 Days. This is book 1 in the Devil You Know series, and this follows Alexandra and Piers. So I will say, because the name of the heroine is very similar to mine, wasn't too fond of it. Aside from that, the plot follows Alexandra first off in school, and she is assaulted by her teacher. Something happens to said teacher. She grows a strong friendship, and they all have their own secrets. So each book follows one of 3 female friends and their love interests. They each have their own hidden backstories or unfortunate backstories, and they find a love with other people who also have unfortunate backstories. It's not my favorite by Kerrigan Byrne, but I still think it's worth reading, as is maybe her whole backlist. I'm not sure how far I'm going to get. Hopefully the whole thing. But she's definitely an author high up on my list, in particular for her darker historical romances, and this is no different. It's a very impactful first few chapters as well. I will say that I do wish there were more moments of friendship in this, but I know not everyone wants to see the relationship dynamics of other characters, maybe just primarily focus on the leading couple, but that is fine. Either way, this one worth the read. Now, for the last two book recommendations I do not own physically, but I do think they are worth mentioning. That would be The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is book one in the Off Campus series. I will say I favorited this book above the other ones in the series, although I do still have to read The Legacy, which is supposed to be the epilogues of each book. But this one follows Garrett and Hannah. This is a new adult romance. It's a college romance. Garrett is a hockey player, and he and Hannah initially meet in a class that they take together. Hannah is really good at it, whereas Garrett, not so much in that particular class. He wants her to tutor, but she initially declines. Afterwards, she does show signs that she is in fact crushing on somebody, so they strike a deal to fake a date in order to make her said crush jealous. But of course, during that fake dating period, their feelings become real for each other. I thought it was very sweet. It's not too heavy on the backstory regarding the assault awareness and prevention aspect, but I do think it was very endearing how Garrett would be very patient with Hannah, as he should be, and Hannah taking baby steps, being able to acknowledge her feelings, and vice versa. There is some third act conflict. I do think there maybe could have been something more life altering, whereas that just, it gave what it gave. I still think it was a decent story though overall, well paced. It may not be as emotional as other people may prefer it in regards to that situation, but I do think it was well done for a sports romance taking place in college that is light. The last story I want to share today is Annie's Song by Katherine Anderson. This is the only book that I picked up by this author. It is a historical romance that follows Annie and Alex. Annie was in fact presumed to be touched in the head because of a fever she experienced as a child, but in actuality it just left her deaf, and she was not given the proper attention or caregiving or education. Instead, she was isolated and became a target. Said bullies did assault her in the beginning of the story, and as a result, she became pregnant. Alex is, in fact, the brother, the responsible brother of her assaulter. So he proposes a marriage to her family. Her family basically hands her off, not informing Annie what happened, because again, they don't try to communicate with her, because again, they don't know what is truly going on with her condition. Over the course of their relationship, Alex does eventually come to realize what's going on with Annie, and we do get to see communication aspect in here. There is a little bit of consequence regarding the assaulter, the brother, but I do admit I wish there were more repercussions on his end. Overall, I still thought it was a worthwhile story. It could be better, but I can see why it would be polarizing. But it's still worth mentioning here. And those are all my recommendations for Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. I would also like to mention that in the description box down below, I did include a link to a campaign I learned about, which is on nomore.org, as well as a few articles regarding consent in romance books and how that has evolved in the romance genre. I thought those were very interesting articles to check out, so feel free to look at those down below. But with that being said, my name's Alexis, and until next time, take care and happy reading.